I'm Steve Krumenaker, and the only videos I've done to this point are in response to the ornament challenge that Carl and Alan host every year, and I've been wanting to do a different video, and after thinking about it I decided to do a video on something I like to do after I take a bull off the lathe. There's a lot of good videos out there already about turning bulls, and I don't really have anything to add to that. Most of what I would do in a video, I would just show what I've learned from watching others. So I'm going to talk about something a little different. I'm going to show you 3 maple bulls. This first bull, one of the very first bulls I turned, and technically it's not a very good bull. I didn't get the bottom real good. I probably left it too thick. I was actually afraid of this piece of wood. I knew that I had no business even trying to turn it, but it was on my lathe, so what was I going to do? Obviously, there's nothing that I can do to enhance that grain. It's just beautiful on its own. I could try color, but I just like the natural look. This bull technically is a better bull than the first one. It's also maple, and it had a chance to lay outside for a few years. And everybody knows what happens to maple when it lays outside. It spalks. And again, there's nothing that I can do to improve on that. That's just beautiful all by itself. This third bull I turned very recently. Technically it's the best bull of the 3. The bottom's nice and flat. The thickness is nice. It's got a raised rim on it. Got a nice lip. Gives you a place to get. It's undercut a little bit. It gives you a place to grab. But if it was on a shelf with the other 2 bulls, you probably wouldn't even see this one. And that's where embellishing comes in. By embellishing, you can take this plain grain bull and turn it into something that's going to catch somebody's eye. And maple really lends itself to this technique and this embellishment. This is a basket weave pattern. This is a Zentangle pattern, and we'll talk about Zentangle a little bit later on in the video. I will show how I laid this out. I will show how I drew it in the first place. I'm going to do a little bit of burning on it and show you how to do some of that. Talk about shading, talk about heat, tool control, and hopefully maybe somebody will want to try it. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and do some burning right off the bat, then we'll talk about drawing the pattern. Besides just learning Zentangle, I'm also very much a novice at wood burning. One thing I do before I get started, I always make some practice lines. Get the feel for the pin, the feel for the heat, feel for the wood. I try to practice on the same wood that I'm going to be burning. Make sure everything's right. I don't know if you can tell, but this part has been burned. This here has not. So these are all very simple lines. I've burned all my vertical lines, and now I'm burning my horizontal ones. I still get blobs. don't necessarily worry about following the pencil lines real close. You probably can tell that. They will get erased, and the lines that don't look like they're maybe just exactly right, I can fix a lot of that when I start shading, but I won't start shading until I have the whole pattern burned. You can see it's a very repetitive pattern, which I think is typical of Zentangle. Alright, this is just going to be more of the same for the next half hour, 45 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this pattern, and when I get back we'll do some shading and maybe talk about how this pattern came about. My basic pattern is completed. What I mean is all the lines have been burned, all the vertical lines and the horizontal lines. What I'm doing now is called stippling. It's a shadowing technique, and what this is doing is creating what looks like a hole between the vertical weave and the horizontal weave. It makes it look like the reeds are thick and not just flat. It will make the pattern look more three-dimensional than what it really is. I've got about 50 of these to do probably, I don't know. Maybe more, maybe a few less. But once you've seen one of them done, you pretty well know that's how the rest of them are going to go. So I'm going to continue this, and when I get done I'll come back and start the next part of the shading, which will be highlighting all these lines where they come together to make them look like they're individual pieces of reed and not just a band. I gotta get me a camera with the remote.